Well, there you have it. Week 20 of a 20-week plan to get to this Ironman. It's race week. I can't believe we've come so quickly through this training plan. I started looking back the other day at some of the videos we made earlier. It's been a little while since I was able to update you on the training, but I would say probably as we got to the last quarter of the training, the last 5 to 6 weeks, heading into the 70.3 in Maine, things really got overwhelming. Not to the point where it wasn't bearable or doable, but there was just certain things that had to kind of take the back seat, trying to get everything done with life, training, work, everything like that. 2 days ago, we went out for our final taper, longer bike ride. It was a 50-mile bike and a 5-mile run. I went out there, did it solo. I just needed the mental time to really comprehend what was coming into race week this week. And while I was out there, I mean, there was a couple times out there, because you're just out there, you have plenty of time to think about things to yourself, where I really started to think back at what really has gone on the last 20 weeks. But the real big picture here is, which is why I'm trying to get this video out before we get all stuff together and head down to Tennessee tomorrow, is this oil started burning a long time ago. This process to get to where we are now started earlier than 20 weeks ago. And as I was out there on the bike, I was really thinking about all these things and how we got to this point, not just in the last 20 weeks, but where it all began. So some of you that only know me through these videos, or some of you that have only met me this year through training, or maybe last year on the local tri team. And of course, there's some that have known me almost from the beginning since I started all this. But real quick, I thought it'd be fun to just take a recap and kind of go back down memory lane on my journey, my process of how I actually got to this point. What really sparked this too was kind of just going through some stuff, packing the other day. I had a pile of race shirts I was just going through in my closet. And I pulled out the first shirt I ever had from a race, which was a virtual 5K back in 2017. Why I even really wanted to do that virtual 5K was, at the time, we had just had our second child a year before, me and my wife, and the kids are 18 months apart, 2 boys. So you can imagine within that 2-year time period, 2.5-year time period, things were just crazy. Things were changing at a drastic rate. It's unbelievable what parenthood does to you and changes, what your responsibilities are in life. But the kind of the health and the mental aspect of, controlling stress and things was kind of getting to a point where I was losing focus in myself. Prior to having children, I was always pretty active, whether it was snowboarding, going to the gym, working out. I was never really big into straight cardio like running or biking, and definitely not swimming. We'll get to that in a minute. So we needed somewhere where it was all going to begin. The quickest thing I thought of was, hey, I'll start running. I'll do a couch to 5K. It'll give me something to look forward to. I saw this virtual 5K, this police 5K that was going to be in May of that year. So I said, I'm going to do it the proper way. Get myself a pair of shoes. All I need is 20, 30 minutes a couple times a week. I can head right out the door. I can fit that into my schedule. And then it became easy after that. Things went on the schedule, what I had to do, when, check the boxes. And then it just became kind of fun. Following the plan, walking a little bit, running a little bit, jogging a little bit, and then running. And it all built up to that day. I have actually hung this shirt up in the garage now, just as a reminder of where it all began. It was on May 6th of 2017. It was the Blue Lives Matter virtual 5K. Went out, ran in the neighborhood, had a blast. I said, wow, you know what? I think I want to actually run an actual 5K. So that year just spiraled into trying to just better myself. Every time I went out there, I got a little bit faster. When you're new at something, you just become better at it. So that year, 2017, we just started running a lot of 5Ks, local 5Ks. We even threw in a 10K midsummer. And at that point, my wife actually signed up for a triathlon, the Toe Bag Triathlon, at the end of August. She was doing some of that running with me as well. She was a swimmer. She's able to swim. She had a mountain bike. She had a bike. And why not? She decided to do all 3. So she went out there that day. I remember going up there and watching her with the kids cross that finish line. And I was like, wow, this is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen somebody do. Go out there, swim, bike, run. That's amazing. Unfortunately though, for myself, I couldn't swim at the time. I was able to, get from one end of the pool to the other, kind of doing the doggy paddle, but was never shown the proper way how to swim as an adult. Kind of stayed away from the water much. And I'm like, wow, that would be really cool. What's the next best thing? Running, biking, but I can't swim. Lo and behold, I found out what duathlons were. So that September in 2017, we signed up for the New York City Duathlon in Central Park. And let me tell you what a shit show that was. I picked up a hybrid bike on the marketplace, this big old hybrid bike, cruised through, and little did I know that there's hills, places where I wouldn't expect. Really never been to Central Park before. So climbing all these hills in Central Park with the hybrid bike, snapped a spoke, the rim bent, broke the brakes. It was a disaster. Still finished, and that was, to me at the time, like the coolest thing in the world. But when I showed up to that event, man, the people that showed up with these bikes and all ready to go and all fancy, I was like, wow, I'm in another planet right now. It was just like, I don't belong here. But you know what? At the end of the day, I had a blast. I felt like I accomplished something, and we crushed it. After that, I said, you know what? I'm gonna get a better bike. I'm gonna buy myself a performance hybrid. That we did. Did another duathlon the fall of that year. Felt like I got some better times than I did at the prior one. So as well, to cap off 2017, we just started with the 5K, we did the 10Ks. I signed up for the Suffolk County Half Marathon. Let me tell you, that was probably the most struggling I've ever had in running. My whole body hurt, everything hurt. I knew nothing about nutrition. I knew nothing about I was supposed to drink water or take things while I was out there. I think by mile 11, I thought my legs were gonna explode. But we got that done, checked the box again, put that little thing in the cookie jar for the future, another accomplishment. So what do I do usually now? And this started, I guess, a few years ago is, all right, it's winter time. We got to worry about 2018 now. What do we want to accomplish? Well, I want to become a triathlete. So found a local race, Jamesport Triathlon. That's what we were going to shoot for. It's in July. Learned how to swim over the winter time. Went, took a lesson, really wasn't too keen in the one-on-one on what I was getting from where I went. So we go on the internet, we go to the pool, we just start hammering out, working on something a little bit each time. I had a buddy at the time that was also learning, my buddy Dave. We both hit the pool, we both struggled, we both learned, but as we started connecting laps on one end of the pool to the other and actually being able to breathe with our heads underwater, what an amazing feeling. So 2018, we come around, a friend tells us about this Merrick Bicycles Tri-Team, a local triathlon team. I thought, wow, I don't know about this. Sounds like this is a little too involved for me. Once I started to meet the people on the team though, with open arms, they love to take in beginners. And that's probably the greatest thing about local teams is they're able to cultivate beginners, share all that knowledge with you, and be able to pass it on. Began to train with them, run with them, bike with them a little bit. I did buy a road bike finally at the beginning of this year. I really wanted to get serious about this and do good on my first triathlon. And then open water swim time came. I found out that they swim out in the bay. Went out there with two buddies early on in the season. It was still a little cold out. Had a severe panic attack out there. Didn't want to do this. Went right back to shore. Done. Not doing this again. I think just the whole thing being out there in the cold water with the wetsuit, it was foggy that morning. It was ridiculous. I was like, I am well in over my head here. The pool is a different game than being out in the open water. But again, a few more times with different people showing me along the way, we were able to get out there and started linking up some distance out in the open water. I actually slowly began to really like the open water. I liked being able to get out there once you get over that whole, what the hell am I swimming in here? This is not a controlled environment. I kind of took to that a little bit more and was able to actually really enjoy that open water swimming. Again, we started that year off with some duathlons, and then it was time, all of a sudden, that summer, Jamesport Triathlon. The nerves of steel that day, but the group I had there that day was so supportive. That team environment was there. Got out there, had a great time, a little nervous in the swim, crushed it, had fun, and that was it. Done. There we go. 2018, finally a triathlete, open water swim, bike, run. There we go. Prior to that, just before, I actually did an indoor triathlon, which was a swim in a pool, then an outdoor bike and an outdoor run, which kind of led up to that. But until you get that feeling of being out in the open water with a bunch of other people, that's when you can really determine that, all right, this is serious. Now we're a triathlete. So that summer, as I was training for Jamesport, or shortly after that, I was out for a bike ride, having a blast that summer, just kind of jumping on whatever workouts people were doing. Really didn't have a set plan. I did my triathlon. I didn't know what else to do after that. There's always better for me to have what's next. A couple people were out for that bike ride, and lo and behold, stopped my watch. At the end of that bike ride, it's 56 point something miles. So I thought to myself, I said, well, I've done a half marathon last year in Suffolk. I just did a 56-mile bike. And if I could learn to swim a little longer, that's basically a half iron distance triathlon. I found out some people were doing Atlantic City that year in 2018, Atlantic City 70.3. Late in the year, I should say, late in training for this in the summer to not have a full plan up to it, but I knew where I was at mileage-wise and thought, hey, I can maybe make this happen. So 2018, I thought, how cool would it be if I can go in an 18-month period from couch to 5K, non-adult swimmer, to a half Ironman finish. Went to Atlantic City, had a great group of people that were there that day racing, and completed it. What a feeling. That was probably the highlight of all of this up until this point. Finishing that first 70.3, just the atmosphere there, so many people, it was a day to really remember. So 2019 comes along, we have to come up with some new goals. A few people were going to do Maine 70.3 that year in 2019. Thought that'd be a good idea. Trained, did a couple sprints that year, duathlons again to start the season, had a great year. Went to Maine, a new course, had a very, very hard swim. It was in the ocean, it was very choppy that year. Finishing that swim that year, after hearing how difficult it was amongst other people, was a very good, really made me feel that much better about how my swim ability was coming along. I was able to finish it. I was able to have a good day out on the course. I was able to have a decent time that I was shooting for that day. And after that, I was riding such a high that a few weeks later, Atlantic City was still open. We went back to Atlantic City 70.3 that year in 2019 and had a PR there, not only for the Atlantic City race, but for the 370.3s that I had. So as things have been progressing here, I'm getting a little faster or more efficient. I'm learning so much, which is also helping those times come down. And 2019 also brought on, at the end of the year, my first full marathon, Suffolk County Marathon. They definitely say that wall, you hit it after mile 21, 22 out in the marathon. It was pouring out that day. I was running side by side with a buddy of mine, Gabe, and he was pushing me the whole way. Definitely took me out of my comfort zone, and that's another day I'll never forget. Again, all these little things building up, just you keep putting these back in the memory, whether they were good or bad, and you learn from them if they weren't the way you wanted to do that day, or you pull from the great moments, which can help you get through some tough moments in the future. 2019 going into 2020, I had some plans for 2020. I wanted to bring my time down in the 70.3 distance. I was gonna race 3 70.3s that year and try and go under 5 hours at one of those races. Unfortunately, we all know what happened in 2020. The world kind of shut down, everybody's plans shifted. I was also supposed to run Shore to Shore 50K, which is a 50K trail run at the beginning of that year. I was training a lot in the trails. I was running a lot coming off of that marathon, never really rested. Also had the Gasparilla Distance Classic down in Florida, which was actually like the last official race before everything shut down, which I ran with my friend Jackie and Gina. They know what happened there. I was deathly sick the night before the race. It was a 2-day weekend race. But one of those things, I got through it. Wasn't pretty, but one of those things, again, that you learn from and memories that you can pull from in the future. As well, just before that, as I was preparing for the Shore to Shore, I was amping up my trail mileage and everything like that. And again, I hadn't really rested properly after the season before. My body was putting in a lot of work. I came down with IT band syndrome, runner's knee. pretty bad. It was kind of hampering me, and that run I had in Florida, it was also bothering me there. And that's when I started to learn really self-care and what goes along with what you do to your body when you're swimming, biking, and running. That constant motion, which is basically in a forward motion, then starts to imbalance your body. You have to work on some lateral movements. You have to worry about your posterior chain and strengthen these things. So although 2020 did throw a curveball at the world, it kind of helped me in my situation where I was able to pull back, because I probably would have fought through all that and continued on with my plan in 2020. Everything got pushed away. All the races got pushed away. I was able to start taking care of myself. I started to heal. I started to get stronger, and then did some virtual events that year. I did still train for Maine that year, even though it didn't happen. We ran a virtual 70.3 at our local training ground where a few people joined in that day, and we pushed through. In 2020, I also signed up with Team Blue Line, which is a nonprofit organization which helps law enforcement officers who were injured or killed in the line of duty, helps their families with certain needs that they have. I was able to fundraise still in 2020 without really having many live events. That virtual 70.3 was a fundraiser for that event. We also did some virtual trail runs in the fall of that year. We raised some money, hit my goal for 2020. And for 2021, Team Blue Line was planning their team race, and their team race, which for full Ironman, they were going to Tennessee. Chad, who runs the organization, called and asked if I was interested in doing that race. I was pushing my plans for 2020 of those 3 70.3 distances, trying to go sub 5 to 2021. I hadn't committed yet to any races. It was still October at the time. And this race, Chattanooga, was one of the 3 fulls that I would consider doing in the future. I still wanted to get faster at the 70.3 distance before I committed to going different type of training to the longer distances. And with the kids still being young, I kind of wanted another year or two so they'd be in school and I'd have time to train during the day and not really stress and still enjoy that really young time that they have as kids. You only get them once. But it was an opportunity that I really couldn't say no to. So I was asked to go represent and run with them in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and do that race, full Ironman, next week. And I had a conversation with my wife about it. We kind of discussed that it's going to be a large time commitment. So here we are, a little sooner than I wanted to step up to this distance. I was still having fun at the 70.3 distance, still getting more efficient, becoming a little faster. I haven't made the video yet. I have a bunch of things I want to talk about my Maine recap. We'll probably do that after I get back from Tennessee. I still want to talk about that race. I was able to go a sub 5 hour at that 70.3. Was not the plan that day. Everything aligned, which I'll talk about in that video, and it happened. So that was a big confidence boost. I was going to then 2021 try that sub 5 hour with the 70.3 distance again. Now that we hit it this year, I'm not really stressing about it. I'm just focusing on this race, and we'll worry about 2022, after this race. So here we are. Maybe a little long-winded on where I came from here. I don't know if I presented it the way I really wanted to in timeline fashion, but I'm just showing you my journey. I also have a friend, Jason, who became an Ironman this past weekend in Maryland, who never did a triathlon up until this year, did one sprint try, and just went out this weekend and crushed his full Ironman. He's, I don't want to say a natural because nobody's really a natural at anything. He's an athlete. He was a soccer player in college. And, some people are naturally more fit than others. I chose the progressive way to go through everything and get to this point. I really didn't miss anything along the way. And that's how I got here. It's crazy to think that a week from now, I may be sitting here talking to you about how amazing the day was, or talking about a lot of things I learned on that day. And, but positive thoughts. We're going to keep it positive. We're going to finish. We're going to have a great day. We're going to enjoy every minute and mile of that race. I hope to bring back some information to help all of you. And that's it. I got to finish packing. I got to get some stuff together. The bike is prepped. The bike is ready to go. But it's here. It's race week. I can't believe it. I'm going to have a long day and a lot of hours, especially out on that bike, to think about all the things that, I just presented here, all the memories and all the people I've trained with. Anytime something gets tough out there, I can now dig in and remember a certain training day that was hard, a certain morning I didn't want to get up, but I did get up. I got up to do that training just to be able to finish that race. So that's where we're at. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you can make sense of all this and, understand now where I came from, how I got here. And again, didn't think I'd be here this year going to do this distance, but I am. And we're going to enjoy it. And hopefully you'll be able to see some of it as well. So get after it. Whatever you're shooting for, remember, the race is only against yourself. Don't worry about anybody else out there. Follow your own journey, whatever journey you choose. And just learn from other people, but don't let them make the decisions for you. So get after it. Enjoy that marathon training that everyone's doing. I'll be jumping back on that because New York City is 7 weeks away already. I haven't even thought about really that marathon until next week. But get after it. Stay healthy. Remember, balance that life 1 mile at a time. And we'll see you on the other side.